let me first say welcome, everybody. Today, we are here to present a short presentation on the development of a regional draft freight plan for West Central Minnesota, the MnDOT District 4 area. My name is Andrew Andrusko. I am the statewide freight planning director for MnDOT. I work with a lot of freight businesses and stakeholders, as well as the Minnesota Freight Advisory Committee. This effort here is very important to us. It's going to provide us an opportunity to connect potential freight improvements on the public transportation system, such as highways, roads and bridges, and railroads, to future investment opportunities, such as the competitive Minnesota Highway Freight Program, as well as to talk about key freight needs and issues with the community. Over the next half an hour, we are hoping to speak with you all a little bit about what we learned over the past 13 months in crafting this plan. We've worked with a wide variety of freight and local stakeholders, and we hope that this effort will really help develop future connections between MnDOT, local government leaders, as well as freight stakeholders. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Oberhart. Eric is with CPCS Transcom and is one of the leaders on this effort.
Great. Thank you very much, Andrew. I'm excited to be here today and share some information about the plan, its process, and its findings with everybody online today, as well as those who might be listening on in the future as well. Before we begin, I just want to note that there is an online feedback form for this project, and that form is going to be up until March 20th. You can access this form as well as additional information about the plan by going to district4freightplan.com. You can also go to Google and enter MnDOT District 4 Freight Plan, and some of the initial results for that will direct you to the Minnesota Department of Transportation's website for the plan, which will also have some additional information about some of the intermediate working papers and reports that were part of this plan process. So this is a great way to provide some feedback as well as to dig into additional details if you're interested. So there's a few things that we want to talk about today. First thing we want to do is provide an introduction to the District 4 Freight Plan, the goals of the plan and how it relates to MnDOT's other work. We'll also do a brief overview of District 4's freight transportation system, the assets that make up that system and how it relates to the economy of the district. Then we'll also talk a little bit about the freight transportation system's needs, issues, and challenges that were identified through this planning work. And finally, we'll close with a review of some of the recommendations on how MnDOT can improve freight transportation mobility, safety, and infrastructure condition in the future. So what is the purpose of the District 4 Freight Plan? This plan has been created to provide MnDOT with a clear understanding of the district's freight transportation system, how local industries use this transportation system, and the needs and issues of the freight system's users. And the goal here is that using the information from this plan, MnDOT can make informed policy and planning decisions in the district in the future. Some of the specific items this plan provides includes a detailed, up-to-date assessment of freight transportation needs and issues specific to the district, a list of strategies and recommendations to improve some of those needs and issues in the district. And this plan also provides information that will be used to help inform the development of the next Minnesota statewide freight system plan. So it's important to note that because this plan is part of a larger body of MnDOT work, it reflects policies and goals that have been established in statewide transportation plans. In particular, as we'll see when we talk about recommendations, the freight transportation vision and goals for this plan were originally established in the Minnesota statewide freight system plan. And we'll see those more in a little bit. But this plan also reflects the broader transportation goals and priorities that have been established in the Minnesota GO transportation plan as well. As I mentioned before, this particular planning effort is important because it's going to be contributing to future freight planning work for the state as a whole as well. So What is District 4's freight transportation system? This plan looked at all elements of District 4's multimodal freight transportation system, which include roads, railroads, pipelines, and airports, as seen at the map on the left there. That map also shows the boundaries of District 4 as well. The main focus for research with this plan primarily were roads and railroads, and with a focus on roads in particular, as the highway network is the area where MnDOT and its local transportation planning partners and maintenance partners have the greatest opportunity to make investments and changes in the future. However, it is important to note that all modes of transportation are considered as part of this planning work. So why is freight transportation relevant to District 4, and kind of why is this a topic that is important to study as part of its own plan? Well, at its most basic level, freight transportation is a critical service for much of District 4's economy. About 37% of District 4's employment and about 37% of the district's gross domestic product is associated with freight-related industries, or industries that really rely on freight transportation to support their everyday operations. In particular, agriculture and manufacturing are important freight-related industries in the district and growing freight-related industries as well. Another thing to note here is that freight transportation and the performance of the freight system is a topic that's relevant to communities throughout District 4. It's not a topic unique or constrained to select areas. So for example, on the left here, you'll see a map that shows the distribution of employment and business locations associated with manufacturing across the district, which again illustrates how in terms of manufacturing, this freight system is relevant to communities across the area. And on the right, you'll see a map of agricultural production in the district, again highlighting the importance and wide-ranging presence of freight generating activity in the district. So freight transportation, it's important for the economy of District 4, and it's important for many different communities. That's why it's so important that it receives attention and study as part of this work. So what are some of the needs, issues, and challenges that the freight transportation system and freight-related businesses face? A big part of this project's work was collecting information on freight transportation needs and issues to help MnDOT understand what types of investments, policy changes, and other work might be needed in the future to improve freight mobility, safety, and condition. And so there were a lot of different types of information that helped inform the assessment of needs and issues for this project, including feedback from advisory committee and technical team meetings throughout the process, stakeholder consultations with planning partners and businesses in the district, an online public survey that was collected last summer, analysis of data provided by MnDOT, and also review of previous transportation studies and plans in the district. And so information from all of these previous sources was combined to help us understand what the pressing freight transportation needs and issues are for District 4. What I have here are a set of 3 slides that describe some of the information that we found regarding needs and issues for the road network and the railroad network, as those were the 2 biggest focuses of the plan. So in regards to truck transportation and truck safety, there were a few common findings. Something that we've heard frequently from stakeholders throughout the district were opportunities to improve intersection safety for trucks. This is particularly important when you consider that trucks are slower to stop, accelerate, turn, and enter traffic relative to faster moving traffic, particularly on trunk highways. So intersection safety was an important consideration for many freight stakeholders, as well as the general public. Another big safety topic was the need for additional passing lanes on some trunk highways. These were important first so that general transportation users could pass slow-moving trucks safely, as well as for all types of road users to be able to safely pass farm implements safely as well. Finally, another major truck safety topic that came up in this project was the need for improved shoulders on some routes, both for trunk highways as well as local roads. Many people have noted that shoulders give drivers an important kind of margin for error as they're driving, and are particularly important for large trucks on certain types of roads. Regarding the topic of truck mobility, a common theme that we've heard in District 4, as well as in Minnesota and across the United States, is the ongoing shortage and expected shortage of truck drivers in the future. This topic is important for truck mobility because it affects how easily people can ship and receive goods, the reliability of some shipping options, and as well as just general access to the freight transportation system. Other truck mobility topics that were very important included differences in truck limits between states. So weight limits in North Dakota and Minnesota. Differences between the two states mean that trucks traveling between the two may not always be optimally loaded, and this underloading or overloading can have impacts on kind of the cost of doing business, highway safety, and things like that. Truck mobility is also important in regards to the placement and design of roundabouts in the district. We had a lot of feedback in regards to the need for MnDOT to continue to consider the importance and the presence of trucks as they design traffic roundabouts and circles in the future. Some other major truck mobility topics that came up. The topic of Twin Cities congestion has come up in District 4, as well as some other districts in the past. This is important because congestion in the Twin Cities can affect the reliable operation and truck service to businesses in District 4. Another major topic for folks was communication about construction projects, making sure that information about upcoming construction projects and progress on those projects is readily available so that truck operations can be planned and routed around construction. Road condition in terms of truck needs and issues was received relatively less attention. Generally speaking, the pavement conditions on the trunk highway network and on trunk highway bridges are in pretty good shape. However, there were some condition issues noted on more local routes. The plan also provides some information on railroad needs and issues. Some highlights here. The topic of rail safety came up in terms of the potential risk for collisions on some of the district's train lines with high volumes of traffic and high speed movements for trains. The topic of rail mobility also came up, particularly in the Moorhead area where grade crossings can act as impediments to traffic flow. This is also important for other communities in the district that have downtowns around railroad lines, which can be blocked for multiple minutes at a time with long trains passing through. Another major topic for rail mobility includes just simply the access to rail service. We heard from shippers in the district that many of them would appreciate more convenient, more direct, or simply just general access to rail service in the first place as an alternative way to ship their goods compared with trucking. And finally, another topic that came up was railroad condition. MnDOT, as well as the federal government, provide certain types of support for investment in short line railroads. And stakeholders noted that those investments would be important to continue in the future because short line railroads often lack the resources and the capital to make infrastructure upgrades and investments on their own. So with some of those needs, issues, and challenges in mind, what can MnDOT do to make improvements to the freight system in the future? We've organized some of the recommendations shared here to correspond to a number of different tools that MnDOT has to make improvements to the freight transportation system. So there are policies that inform how MnDOT will act on freight-related topics in the future, partnerships or other organizations that MnDOT can make that can be engaged in to make improvements. Programs, which are investments of time or money to address specific freight needs or issues, and also projects or specific infrastructure investments at specific locations to solve needs and issues. One of the things we've done here is also organized recommendations around the statewide freight system goals that were contained in the Minnesota statewide freight system plan. These include support for Minnesota's economy, improving Minnesota's mobility, preserving Minnesota's infrastructure, safeguarding Minnesotans, and protecting Minnesota's environment and communities. There we go. And so what I'll do is I'll step through each of these broadly. I'm not going to go through each of the individual recommendations here. There will be an opportunity for questions here at the end, but also if there are certain policy areas that you're very interested in or certain types of recommendations you're very interested in, I encourage you to take a look at the online resources that we linked to at the start of the meeting here, because those will have additional information on these. So in terms of supporting Minnesota's economy, the statewide freight system plan provides some individual goals. The freight transportation system should operate efficiently. It should connect to the rest of the world, and it should be able to respond and adjust to changing economic conditions. A major recommendation in this particular area for MnDOT is using the large amount of information on freight transportation needs and issues contained in this plan and incorporate that information into future planning work and planning processes so that freight transportation needs and issues can be addressed as part of MnDOT's ongoing work to maintain and improve the transportation system overall. Another major partnership opportunity here is for MnDOT to continue outreach and engagement with freight transportation stakeholders in the district and statewide, as this is an important way to continue collecting information on freight needs and issues into the future. In terms of mobility, the freight transportation system plan also provides some specific goals. In general, Minnesota's freight transportation system should be able to provide access for all freight users and should also provide users with reliable transportation services with minimal choke points, congestion, or bottleneck. Some of the important policy opportunities here include the opportunity for MnDOT to continue to balance freight transportation needs and other transportation users' needs as it makes investments on trunk highways through town centers and downtowns. And an example of a partnership opportunity in this area includes providing freight transportation information or freight planning resources to county or local governments who will also have a role in addressing freight transportation needs and issues in the future. In regards to condition, the statewide freight system plan provides two goals. MnDOT should ensure that critical segments and connections of the freight transportation system are available and should also ensure that these segments and connections are in a good state of repair. A really big policy recommendation in this area actually comes from the Minnesota State Highway Investment Plan, which is that MnDOT should continue to prioritize the maintenance of existing transportation assets over the construction of new transportation assets. The idea here is that MnDOT already has a very substantial amount of infrastructure that it needs to maintain and limited resources to do so. And so in the future, it should still continue to prioritize these existing assets over constructing additional assets that would increase this maintenance burden in the future. And a partnership opportunity in this area is an opportunity to take the information on freight needs and issues in this project and share that information with state and federal legislators so that they can also understand Minnesota's freight investment needs and the importance of funding for freight improvements and just general transportation improvements in the future as well. In regards to safety, the statewide freight system plan establishes two goals. MnDOT should seek to enhance freight transportation system safety, and MnDOT should also ensure that plans are in place to protect the public where there is freight activity interfacing with the public. So for example, railroad grade crossings, as well as major highway routes where there is freight, and in fact, any highway route or road where there is freight in the state. Some of the major opportunities and recommendations in this area revolve around MnDOT's ongoing work to conduct safety outreach and safety education through programs like its Toward Zero Deaths effort, as well as Operation Lifesaver for railroad grade crossings. Another opportunity here for the district is to continue to address many of these freight transportation safety needs and issues through its ongoing work, because again, as we mentioned before, MnDOT can program freight-specific improvements into existing projects and upcoming projects and help to address many freight system needs and issues through its ongoing work in general. Finally, the last category here is environment and community. And the Minnesota statewide freight system plan has two goals in this area. The freight transportation system and its operations should respect and complement cultural, natural, and social context. And the operation and infrastructure for the freight system should be consistent with the principles of context-sensitive solutions. Two suggestions and recommendations we had in this area. MnDOT should continue to examine opportunities to reduce the use of salt and de-icers where possible. This is based on feedback from agricultural stakeholders who are concerned about the potential impact that salt and winter ice control operations may have on groundwater and other water resources for agriculture in the future. And in terms of partnerships, again, there's another opportunity here for MnDOT to offer some of the freight resources assembled as part of this plan as assistance to local and county governments so that they may make freight improvements as well and protect their environment and communities in terms of improving safety and reducing mobility concerns and things like that in the future. So there's another category we haven't really talked about, just very briefly. MnDOT, District 4 and the state as a whole have been partnering and planning to build infrastructure improvements throughout the district that improve both freight mobility and freight safety. Some examples of this ongoing planning and project work include work to separate grade crossings in Moorhead, the creation of new snow fences on I-94, and the improvements to Randolph Road in Detroit Lakes. That project in particular received some National Highway Freight Program funds through the Minnesota Highway Freight Program in the past. Also, as part of this work, MnDOT is still exploring some potential solutions for high-ranking needs and issues. The idea here is by exploring some of these issues in greater detail, MnDOT will have a better understanding of the level of complexity and level of investment needed to address some types of freight needs and issues in the district. So for example, on here, you'll see some examples of intersection improvements that can improve freight safety and freight mobility, where the trunk highway network meets county roads. So that concludes the body of the presentation here. Before we go on to questions, I just want to call out again the opportunity to provide feedback online. There's a wealth of information about the recommendations I just discussed, as well as the planning process as a whole. So if you are seeking more information, again, district4freightplan.com has links to all of that information, as well as an online comment form if you'd like to provide some more information for our consideration as part of this process. Also, there is some contact information here as well. There's contact information for Andrew, who's introduced at the start of the meeting today, as well as Mary Safgren, the District 4 Planning Director as well.